Hi guys, this is a review for our midterm exam, which is going to happen on the next week. So this is for you guys to base your study on. I'm gonna have a couple of examples here for you to practice what we're gonna have on exam. So let's me minimize the video and let's start. Right. So, well, clearly on the midterm, no collaboration with other students required, allowed. I will have student proctors who will help me to make sure that you guys don't collaborate with each other. So, if you tend to look into each other's work, please don't do so because other students will be helping me to watch you guys to make sure that you don't do that. And I'm pretty sure you're not planning to do it, but just in case. Um, I encourage you to study in groups and please reach out as usual. If you have any questions, you will have my phone number, you have my email. So if you have any questions related to the midterm, I'll be happy to answer those. Midterm will be posted on Canvas, so you will need to bring your laptop to the class as usual. Also, you're allowed to bring one-sided cheat sheet, and that's can be printed or handwritten. I strongly encourage you to handwrite it because you will remember some information if you write it yourself. It should be a regular piece of paper that we use for printers, so A4. Make sure it's only one-sided. Exam is going to cover 200 points of your final grade, so it's 20% of your final grade. So please do good. Um, Duration, I have a lot of questions about duration. So I have a dedicated 2 hours for this exam. I don't think it's going to take you guys 2 hours to complete it, but we will have a classroom available for us for 2 hours. The exam will require Respondus browser lockdown, so please make sure to install it. Um, you will need it to do an exam. Um, all the diagrams will be done on the piece of paper, which I will give you guys. So you will not be able to use any devices other than your computer with Respondus browser on it. So make sure to hide your phones. Make sure to hide your textbooks in your bags. Stuff like this. It's a well-known process. Right, so the format for the midterm is 20 multiple choice questions, 4 points each, 10 questions about diagrams. Yes, no, you guys are pretty familiar with those questions. We had them in homework 1 and 2. The diagrams that we will be working with will be advanced TRDs that will have subtypes, supertypes, many-to-many relationships, stuff like this. So please practice. Advanced ARD class has a lot of practice exercises for you, so please review those. You'll be required to create a logical design based on the ERD provided, and that will take 50 points, and at the end, you'll be creating the actual ERD. Which is gonna be 40 points of your final exam grade. So pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, please shoot them my way. I will try to answer them as soon as I get them. So how to study for exam? I suggest to first review class slides. Um, Make sure that you understand the concepts, make sure that you know how to do sample exercises that we did during class time. Also read book chapters 1 to 6, but only cover the materials that we covered in class. Well, you're welcome to read more, but if you want, but exam will only cover what we learned in class. Um, the way I structured the exam, it will be more of a not a theory, but applying the concepts. So you don't need to memorize definitions. You don't need to know the exact definition, what is primary key, what is a foreign key, for example, but you need to understand what is a primary key and what it's used for. Make sure to review all in-class exercises posted in first 6 modules. Make sure that you know how to create entity relationship diagrams, how to create advanced entity relationship diagrams. Um, Make sure you understand how to translate business rules into entity relationship diagrams. Please review class slides. Please make sure to review your homework one. For homework one, I'm not going to post a solution online. However, if you have questions or interested on a specific question from homework one, please reach out and I will send you a solution to questions that you're asking about. Also, please make sure to practice logical design. That is our last lecture. So I have an example posted in lectures, in modules for you guys to work with. And that is actually an example from a diagram from our homework. All right, so study guide posted in Canvas. So there is a this under midterm exam module. It's a complete study guide document. So please review it. Please make sure that you follow the study guide when you study for the exam. And again, I strongly suggest to start from slides and see if you can answer questions. And if not, then you can go back to the book and see maybe book will explain it better for you. So we're gonna go class by class and what will be on the exam. So from class one, database systems, we will have questions about data versus information. What is data? What is information? How each one of those is each one is defined. What is the difference between those two? What do we store in the database data or information, right? So what is the difference between structured and unstructured data? So what kind of data do we store in relational databases? And relational databases, we store structured data, and unstructured data is for more for big data databases. There will be questions on file processing systems. You will need to understand disadvantages of the file processing system. You would need to understand what kind, you will need to understand anomalies, delete anomalies, update anomalies, insert anomalies, all of those presented within the file processing systems. You'll also need to understand what types of databases we have, what is schema, what is metadata. Metadata is important. There will be multiple questions about metadata on the exam. So here's a couple of sample questions for the material covered in class one. As you can see, those questions are long. That's how your exam questions are going to look like. So those will be, majority of the questions will be scenario based, and you will need to understand the materials. So in order to answer this question. So in this case, we have a company that works with spreadsheet and has various problems with spreadsheets. So we need to find the approach which will help them to improve data management. And there is a couple of answers here. So you can practice that, and here is the correct answer. Again, if you have any questions, what is the correct answer, I'll be happy to explain it to you. Again, like, I mean, there will be more and more questions on class one material. Is just an example of sample question. For class two, in class two, we covered different database models, different data models. So we started from entity relationship data model. We talked about relational data model. You guys probably remember that main parts of the relational data models are relations, keys, and constraints. You need to understand what is the primary key, what is a foreign key, what kind of constraints we have. And for entity relationship data model, you also need to understand business rules, entities, relationships, and how different cardinalities work together. Well, We did talk about different data models based from the point of view of data abstraction. You will need to understand the concept of abstraction, and the concept of abstraction deals with simplifying real life objects to easier model them. So from the abstraction point of view, we have external, conceptual, internal, and physical data model. And they go from the lower level of abstraction to the highest level of abstraction, starting from physical, which is a very low level of data abstraction, where we have the very concrete implementations, and internal, conceptual, and to the top users. External data models that has very high level of abstraction, meaning that a lot of implementation details are missing. So our end user doesn't need to know what are the details. We talked about logical and physical independence, and logical independence exists when we can change internal data model, meaning we can change tables in the database, add more data to the database without affecting conceptual model. And conceptual model is our entity relationship diagram. So that is logical independence. Physical independence is a little more harder to achieve. It's actually very hard to achieve. That means that you can change physical data files without affecting internal data model. So there will be questions like this. Based on that in the exam, please practice logical and physical independence questions posted in class 2. We have 3 questions there. They will help you a lot for the exam. Right, so here's an example of the question for class 2. There is more, but that's just one here, so you can read through that if you want. So here is an answer for this question for you guys. I'm not going to spend much time here. Another sample question is question 2. So the table below is an example of what? Is it employee entity data type? Is it employee table metadata, SQL table, or employee data file? So and obviously that is a metadata. It's a data about employee table. So it's employee table metadata. There's another question here, so you would need to, if you want, you can practice that. And I purposely didn't put answers here, so to give you guys some time to look at that and maybe guess a little bit. If you need an answer for sample question 2, please reach out. I will be happy to discuss it with you. Um, so that concludes class 2. Class 3 and 4 is all about entity relationship diagrams. So you need to understand business rules, entities, what is a weak entity, what is associative entity, what is the difference between strong entity and weak entities and entities that depend on other entities. So for example, if we have employee and dependent is going to be a weak entity because it needs employee ID. Another example of the weak entity is customer and order table. Order table needs customer ID. There can be order without customer. Someone's got to pay for the order. So that is another example of the weak entity. You need to understand attributes, need to understand the difference between simple and composite attributes, single valued and multi-valued attributes. There's also attributes on the relationship, as we remember, and attributes on the relationship in logical design translates into a separate relation. But we're going to talk about logical design in a couple of slides. You need to understand the relationships. So you need to understand cardinalities. Relationship can be one to many, one to one. Many to many can be optional or mandatory, unary, binary, ternary. There will be no ternary relationship in the exam. So please concentrate on unary and binary. Couple of questions for you guys here to practice. So, and Next class is advanced ARD. So for advanced ARD, you need to understand what are subtypes, what are supertypes, need to understand the difference between specialization and generalization, um, bottom up versus top down approach, how both of those are implemented during the database design. Um, Need to know what is overlap and disjoint constraints. So how they are implemented within ERD. You will not have to draw the diagram for using advanced ARD, but you need to understand all the concepts covered in class. Also, you need to understand attributes and relationship inheritance. So both attributes and relationships are inherited by subtypes. So all the attributes and relationships of the supertype will be inherited by all the subtypes. Please make sure you go through the class material. Please make sure you understand how to read ERDs and how to create advanced ERDs. Here's an example, sample question for advanced ERDs, so you can practice that, and correct answers here are A and B. And logical design. Logical design is our last topic that we cover before the exam. So for logical design, you need to know what are relations and what defines relations compared to tables. So as we remember, relations is a named tables that need to adhere to certain rules. There shouldn't be all the attributes must be atomic, so there shouldn't be any single-valued, multi-valued attributes. There shouldn't be exactly the same two columns with exactly the same name within the same relation. There shouldn't be two rows that are exactly the same within the same relation. So you need to understand what are the rules for the relation for the table to be a relation. You need to know integrity constraints, and you need to understand the difference between domain constraints and integrity constraints. And domain constraints for a relation defines set of values. That's what we covered during the last class. Entity constraints is a relational integrity. Relational integrity means that there must be a primary key for each relation, and primary key must not be null. And referential integrity. So in order to connect two tables together, we must have primary key in one table, which is a foreign key in another table. So this foreign key must match primary key in the main table on one side of relationship, and foreign key always sits on the many side of relationship. Or foreign key should match it, or it should be null if rules allow. Need to understand the types of keys, what are identifiers, what is unique key, what is primary key, foreign key. Both primary keys and foreign keys can be simple and composite. We covered that during the class. So for ERD, you will need to read to be able to read extended ERD and answer the questions based on the extended ERD. We did that a lot in our advanced ERD class, so please refer to slide deck and you will be able to practice based on the questions we covered in advanced ERD class. Again, nothing complicated, just please remember that relationships and attributes are inherited from supertype to subtype. So all the subtypes inherit attributes and relationships of the supertype. That was for logical design. And for ERD example, here is an sample scenario for you guys to work on that. When you play with this simple scenario, you would need to do some analysis. You would need to know what are correct and incorrect entities, and I suggest you to go and review this material in class 4. You would need to know what is and what is not an entity. So, for example, user is not an entity. Report is probably not an entity, right? Because both of those are not part of the conceptual data model. User sits on the external data model, and report is something that we extract from the database. Common mistakes. So people used to overthink ERDs, put a lot of entities there, put incorrect attributes, incorrect cardinalities, specifically on many-to-many relationships. So please pay attention. Scenario is very simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it. You just need to know what should and what should not be part of ERD. And once you know that, you should be able to create a simple diagram. Your diagram should have very few entities on the exam. Um, Reading extended ERD, we talked about that. And pretty simple, just need to make sure that you know how inherit relationship, how attributes and the relationship inheritance works. And for the logical design, so you would need to create logical design during the exam. You will need to know how to map multi-valued attributes. And if you remember, multi-valued attributes go to a separate relation. You need to know how to map composite attributes. And for the composite attributes, we create a separate attribute for each of the component. You need to know how to map many-to-many relationships. So you must have 3 entities there and one that connects to others on the both sides that sits on the both side of many-to-many relationship. Why is that? Because relational data model and relational databases only support one-to-many relationships. So we need to convert every many-to-many to one-to-many, and that is why we put one relation in between. You need to know how to map unary relationships. So foreign key goes to the same relation. Example of that is going to be an employee who is managed by a manager who is also an employee. So in this case, for manager ID, we create a foreign key in the same employee table, and it will reference primary key employee ID on the same table. Okay. And a couple of common mistakes for you guys. I hope you don't make them, but I just decided to list them here to help you out a little bit with your exam. So very often people miss third entity when mapping many-to-many relationships. So you need to make sure to include this entity and this relation. And this relation must have composite foreign key that consists of primary keys of the existing entities. People very often miss foreign key when mapping unary relationship. We talked about that scenario a minute ago, and a very common situation when students are missing referential integrity constraints. In other words, foreign keys, primary keys, even if your conceptual data model does not have foreign or primary keys, you will still need to include those in the diagram. And that's all I got. I hope you all do good. If you have any questions, please reach out. I am available. I would be happy to help you with the material, with understanding. So if you need anything, please reach out. And I hope you all do good on exam, and good luck.